Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gangs of London. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I honestly feel like this episode was really done in a very interesting way, because I feel like this episode in its entirety could be a movie all on its own, just with the story beats and everything. Like, it could be like a very self-contained story, but obviously this is part of an overarching plot. Especially like the back half of the episode, I feel like, that's like the third act to a movie. It feels kind of like almost like a assault on precinct 13 type of movie. Like, there's movies that kind of feel kind of in that vein, kind of almost like a Hotel Artemis, or like there's this particular location and there's an assault on it, just like said assault on precinct 13 I kind of referenced. But it was kind of interesting as we got to bounce back and forth between Darren and his dad, whereas Darren, is trying to deal with the aftermath of everything. Like, obviously for him, he's got his gun and he's got the bullets in it, and it's always missing 2 bullets. It's the 2 bullets he used to kill Finn. And obviously for him, it's a situation where, especially because earlier in the episode, I think at the very beginning, he was thinking about when he ended up picking up the gun when he was with Ewan. And I think that just probably reminds him even more like, oh, his buddy's dead. Even more so his buddy's dead, because it's like, oh, because I was your buddy and my dad killed you just so that no information about like what we did got leaked and none of it trailed back to me. So it creates this complicated situation and feeling in it. I kept thinking, and he says it later on that, like, well, we'll get to it. I kept thinking like one of those bullets was going to be for himself. I thought he was going to like kill himself, but Mal has to keep telling him like, yo, get the hell away from the damn windows. Evie, keep an eye on the kid. I'll get your groceries and stuff like that, because Evie has no idea what what Darren did to get to these circumstances. To be here where he is right now, where it's like, oh, we have to look after you. Like, they knew, like, as far as she knows, it's like, oh, he killed someone, so like he needs to be protected and looked after. So that's the full extent of it, but she doesn't know the details. Which, knowing the details, even she says later on, oh, I would have never looked after this kid if I knew what he did, because you're not going to bring the full weight of the Wallace family on me. That whole conglomerate. Now, that's not going to be me. That's not going to, And so, I mean, would have maybe, because knowing would have changed a lot of things, because she wouldn't have let him hide there. And like I said, it's just interesting where it's like you have that like situation where everything's kind of calm, but like there's like a lot of like thought about like, because also Mal is telling him, is like, yeah, this is kind of on you, kid. You're the reason. It's like, you want to blame what happened to Ewan. It's like, blame yourself for everything that happened. You're the reason. You're the one that killed Finn. Yeah, you might have been set up to do that, but you're still the one to pull the trigger, and literally all of us have to pay the price for it. Hell, they don't even know. Like, I don't even know if, like, because the story is kind of told a little out of order in certain regards, because some of the stuff with Darren is happening simultaneously, while other stuff seems like it's happening in the past a little bit. Like, earlier stuff, it's like the time frames aren't 100% synced up, so I'm curious, like, whether Mal got his message, and did he tell Darren about, like, oh, like, all our people were wiped out because of that, or was it just because of, like, oh, the current circumstances you're in right now, and Ewan being dead is because of that. But the fact is, whether or not he knows about their people being dead, I wasn't 100% clear in that. He had left Mal a message about it later on, but I don't know if Mal ever, like, necessarily answered it or, like, heard it, but it was interesting. Like, obviously, Darren's dad came upon that, like, family, and he ends up stealing the truck and stealing the dude's gun. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to go steal this. You can call the cops in a day. Wait a day, and then, but nevertheless, go be with your kin. Because for him, it's like, family is very important to him, because it's like, obviously, he's rushing, trying to get to his son before, because, the people that, showed up at the scene at the aftermath, because at first I was like, is these Finn's people, like, are these people working for Sean? But it's like, no, because Sean is under the impression everyone is dead, but they're looking for any leads that could potentially lead to anyone, any survivors, because they have some, I guess because of connections and all that, they know that Darren's alive. They're just trying to find out where the hell he is. Because I guess, like, maybe his body isn't confirmed amongst the others. Like, Sean already kind of knew ahead of time, like, Darren wasn't going to be there, might have been in hiding, but it's just, like, it was meant to set an example, make a point, Because that is an interesting thing. It's like when he saw like a father with his child, is kind of like circling back. It's like, oh yeah, like it made him think of his own circumstances. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, because even Sean says like, oh, I would never, like, obviously he did the whole thing with Lale, but it's like, no, I would have never hurt any kids. Like, that's not how we do things. And it's obviously that seems like that's how Darren's dad operates too, because it's like, nah, this would have been. I'm not going to strip a child away from their father. Like, that's not what I'm not about to do that type of situation, especially someone so young. And it's like, you're innocent. I'm just going to be borrowing your vehicle. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. So, but I like how, like, what I was talking about, like, obviously Mal went to the store and everything, and that dude in the jacket, he was super suspicious, because even Mal was like, your pint's getting, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm getting stuff for my dog and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm super suspicious of the guy, especially like when they're having a conversation, like, about everything. I don't know if home dude ended up knowing everything that was necessarily going on, but he knew about, like, Darren being hidden out and everything. But what I thought was interesting is, like, oh, the guy in red just happens to walk by. It's like, oh, the bathroom, and, like, cutting back to, like, Darren, dad, it's like, oh, he's, like, on the other side of the door, and it's like, the guy pulls out a gun. I was like, and now in retrospect is the thing of like, well, would Darren's dad have been better off pulling the trigger? Probably not, because it's like everything was kind of almost set in stone in certain regards anyway. But it's also a thing of like, find out like that bar is full of their people. So if Darren's dad had pulled the trigger, it would have just ended it probably would have ended the same anyway. But it was such a tense scene because he's moving the gun, trying to listen in, and Darren's dad's super quiet. He picks up the shotgun and he's like ready to lock it. Like, that was such a tense moment. I thought it was so cool how they captured that. But poor guy that helped out Mal, like, get the groceries and stuff like that, he ends up getting shot, and it's like, all right, we know where they are, let's lock and load. And just as they do, like, Darren's dad's climbing down trying to get there ahead of time. At the same time, they're cut back to it, like, or for earlier in the episode, you had that moment between Darren and Evie, because even Evie being like, who was it that you killed? Even taking note of, like, oh yeah, that gun you got? Like, it looks like this dude named Mike, like, his craftsmanship and stuff like that. He's like, I can't tell you anything about where I got this gun, what it's connected to, what I'm here for. Him and the lady, like, obviously they kind of start off a little like, I can't wait to leave here. I can't wait till you leave here. But they kind of hit it off and stuff like that, because obviously she makes ammunition. And she talks about the fact, well, I think she makes ammunition, yeah, because she brings it up later on. It's like, oh, this is one of my bullets. And it's like, she makes enough to kind of get by and stuff like that. But also, he's like, yeah, but not enough to get Wi-Fi. I said, oh, you cheeky bastard. That's what I also love about, like, I kind of try and add that in my vocabulary. Like, I love the word cheeky. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's such a, it's a very... I don't know if Americans, I don't think that's in our, like, lexicon. It's in the British lexicon, but I think that's such an interesting, just like, when someone's just being kind of, like, sarcastic, or just like, oh, look at you, you little cheeky bastard. Like, oh, look at you being cheeky. Like, I like that phrasing. It's so cool. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of, like, British, I don't know if that'd be considered just regular, like, I think that'd be considered, like, probably, like, British slang or something, but regardless. The fact is that, Evie also talked about the fact is she's kind of taking in other kids, which even Darren's like, hey, why don't you take me in? She's like, nah, you killed someone, and whoever's coming after you for that will come, like, it's not only you that's going to be in danger, but the people I care about. Foreshadowing and stuff like that in many different regards. But it was a situation where her kids show up and everything, and it's like, oh man. And then, Darren's dad comes running. And then, well, no, because what started it was the fact is that, like, they found out that Mike, the dude who makes guns, he died. And, like, apparently someone, like, basically, torched this place. And immediately Evie thought about the gun, and she's like, she thought immediately, like, oh, you're responsible for it. That's what happened. It's like, no, it's like, who'd you kill? And then Mel had to be fine. He killed Finn Wallace, and that was like, wait, what? What have you gotten me into type of situation? So then Darren's dad comes, but lo and behold, who's not too far behind. And then it turns into a massacre. This is, once again, it's the inverse of a lot of stuff. Obviously, it's like, it's kind of there on that side of, like, when Sean and his people rolled up and just, like, laid to waste to that, the travelers camp, and now it's like the inverse of that. Like, dude, Evie's kids, dude, that's so heartbreaking, because they're kids she took in and everything, riddled with bullets. There's the ones that are still in the trunk. You see, like, the back glass just kind of explode. There's blood. It's just terrible. There was one that got shot, but like the other one was able to kind of bring him over. It's just hailing bullets, dude. Then like it's devastation on the inside too, dragging people in. She tried to get to one of her kids. Hell, one of her kids was like, "Mom," caught a bullet to the back of the head because he was laying on the ground because he had just previously got shot. It's just like, this was a gnarly, like I said, this was just kind of a very one-sided like massacre. Like I said, just kind of the inverse of that. What was that, episode 2? But it was sad, especially because Evie's watching her kids die one by one. You know, it's like, yeah, she just literally said that Darren being there would do this, and it's like, yeah, her kids are dead because of this, you know. And so obviously they're trying to fight back, but they're also outgunned, but they're still doing their thing. Hell, that one kid, last thing he did before he got killed, he pulled a switch, freaking metal shielding comes out, and it's like, yo, this place was designed to be like a fortress. That's crazy. So obviously they're going to try and make their way in from the top, but obviously like Mal opens up one slot, starts laying the waste to some of them because they've got like a ladder, so they're trying to get to the roof so they can find, like, eventually, like later on they're putting like C4 in to blow up, you know, like Evie's last kid, as well as Mal go upstairs to kind of try and deal with that. And it's like, if you see any foot that aren't ours coming down these damn stairs, shoot, because Evie's kind of locked in mode. Hell, she like laid into that dude that was in the fireplace. He fell. Darren's dad comes over, stabs him with a fire poker, throws some alcohol at him, and then lit his ass up on fire. That was combo after combo after combo. It's like, that was brutal. But considering like, hey, you're coming to kill my son, fuck you type of situation, you know. So then like Mal and Evie's son like shooting at the guys on top. It's like, especially like the cinematography for the show is insane. But in particular for this episode, like I said, it just feels like you were legitimately watching a scene from a movie. Like I said, this episode, you just took this story. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that, like I've mentioned earlier, that reflects, you know, having a similar plot and everything. But it's like, this episode just encapsulated on its own, just a pocket on its own could be a movie. And it's just like, whew. It'd be a movie you'd walk away depressed from. We'll get to that soon enough, but it's like, dude, freaking Evie's last kid gets it. Mal like kills one dude. He's riddled, like getting lit up a little bit himself. Kills the last. I love that they're literally on the ground shooting each other. And then Mal's like trying to figure out what he's going to do, and he sees something on one of the dead bodies. I was like, what are you doing? I thought what he was going to do was hoist up one of the other bodies, and they're going to shoot at him. And, you know, at the same time, like, there's another group trying to get in. It's just a whole thing. And I thought, like, oh, he was going to hold a body up, or at the very least, maybe he put the body armor on. But Mal's up there getting the bullets. I was like, yo! And the fact is, riddled with bullets, bleeding, dying. He has the energy to set up that whole thing with the grenade in the bag. I'm like, yo, the pure force of will. That's goddamn gangster right there. Holy shit, dude. And then to like throw it out, make it land on the people who are trying to break in on the front door. I thought that was so fascinating, especially because it turns out like one of the people involved in this, like it turns out home dude that was, you know, in that bar earlier, or store earlier with the red on, him and the lady, like, oh, they're a couple. And so she watches as her significant other. Like, they slow-mo that too. Like, you see one dude, like, the explosion engulfs him and literally rips him apart. It's like, oh, that was gruesome, visceral. And obviously, they're pissed. They, you know, the explosion ended up knocking away a lot of the shielding. So Darren and his dad kind of get away. And, you know, Darren's like, no, Evie, come with us, come with us. But Evie was like, you better be worth it, kid. And it's like, I'll hold him off as long as possible. And the dude's like, where does that lead? And Evie doesn't say anything. Lady comes in, like, and shoots him because it's like, she's so heartbroken. Like, my boyfriend or whatever, my significant other is dead, you know? So it's like, I don't care. So down the path, you know, Darren's dad is loading a gun, and he gives it to Darren. It's like, all right, you know, let's go. That must be Al with the boat. And, you know, Darren points a gun at his dad. It's like, I was waiting, saving one bullet for you, because it's like, he blames his dad because it's like, you killed my best friend, kind of for nothing at the end of the day. And he's like, you know, I've done it before. Like, I'll shoot you. And he's like, it's going to take more than one. And he's like, I've done it before, yeah. But, it, you know, it kind of saying, like, it was going to be done in a second. But it's like, nah, it took a few. I mean, especially considering, like, he shot, you know, he thought, like, oh, no, I'm killing a pedo. Like, boom, put Finn down. Obviously didn't know it was Finn at the time, but then like immediately when he was grabbing that thing, and Finn ended up shooting Finn in the head. So that was more still kind of a little bit of panic mode. I don't know if you kind of consider that still more on purpose. So I think the first shot was more on purpose than the second one was, but still. Regardless, his dad's like, you can shoot me? Just wait till we get to the damn boat and you can shoot me in the head. Like, come on. And he's literally dragging his son. But that final dude shows up just as, like, the boat's arriving. I was like, where's my wife? Where's Evie? He gets lit up. They're trying to make their way to the boat. Dude, I was like, dude. And, like, bullets are riddling down the bridge and they're still trying to go. Darren's dad's getting shot in the back, but it keeps going. Darren's getting shot in the legs, and it's just like he lands on top of him, and he's holding up his son. He's just like, come on. Push as hard as you can. Just get as far as you can. A bullet rips through Darren's dad and hits Darren, and they both fall over, and the guy comes over and puts a bullet in Darren, and the guy's asking, like, and Darren's dad's asking, like, why him? Doesn't get an answer. I was hoping at the very least he'd get an answer at the end, and then the guy comes over, puts it directly to Darren's dad's head, and pulls the trigger. That's why I say this would be the most depressing movie too, because it's like, at least with a movie kind of of this nature, at least like somebody survives. Like, not everyone's going to survive, but maybe some people survive. This is the most depressing thing where it's like, oh, literally no one survived. I didn't expect that. I thought maybe Darren's dad would be able to get him on a boat, maybe die in the process, sure. But that's the sad thing of like, you did everything you could to get your son out of this alive, and it didn't matter in the end because your son still ended up dying. And the sad thing is, you had to be alive long enough to see your son die. He couldn't have done you the courtesy of killing you first, then killing Darren afterwards. No parent should have to see their child die. But also what I think is interesting, that this is actually an inverse of last episode as well, because Sean survived an assault. Like, most of his people are dead, but luckily, thanks to Elliot and that undercover cop dude, it's like, oh, Sean ended up surviving, so it's a little different in his circumstances. So it's interesting making these the back-to-back episodes like that are flip sides of each other like that. But we do find out who is the one, at least partially responsible for this, because he gets a call and it's like, oh, another son has to die. So it's like, so this all took place before the attack on Sean last episode. So that's interesting. Because I was wondering, I was like, isn't that blonde lady the lady that was... yeah, it is. So that's why, because this episode took place... This is literally what they were doing before they, like, hit Sean on both at home and, like, at that meeting he had with Luan. But it turns out the people that, what's-his-face had met with, Alex and Ed had met with, the dude that's like, oh, I'm going to introduce you to these people at the party last episode. It seems like he's taking orders, because he's like, yeah, orders came down like for another son, so it's like he's part of this, but he's not the top dog, so even he's answering to someone else, which is interesting, because let's not, like, time frame wise, since this episode took place first, all that went down and the word had already came out, the next person going after is Sean. Because I guess it's like whoever this is trying to dismantle the Wallace enterprise and everything, which is ironic considering that's what Elliot's doing. He's just trying to do it a more legal way. Someone else is doing it a very bloody way. But it seemed like more so than anything they were going after Sean. Now, whether they would have left the rest of the family alone, who's to say? I don't know about that. I feel like this would have been like, like Darren and his dad got. So, like, I feel like it would have been Sean, the rest of Sean's family, too. But the main person was, at the very least, killed Sean, so... I guess, in a way, you can almost feel somewhat good, because you're like, right, at least some of the people involved in this episode, like, the surviving members of this team, got it last episode. So, like, we know Blonde Lady, she got it at the end by Alex. One of the two snipers, I think one of them got killed, the other one just got injured. It might have just been like it was the same person who got injured. I don't remember, but at least, the blonde lady who killed Evie, at least she got it. So you're like, there's some form of karma and, I guess, some justice. But you know what, this also, I think the message of maybe just this show, but in particular this episode, is like, there's no happy endings in this world. Like, you think like, oh, you're hoping very least maybe at least he can get his son out of here, and at least, there be some like happy resolve in that regard. It's like, no, everyone died. Everyone was dead. everything Darren's dad did to protect his son kind of was all for naught because it all ended badly. Because not only Darren died, not only the Nell died, not only did Darren's dad die, but like, you know, Ewan died kind of for nothing. Because, you know, that's what his dad did just to make sure no one knew about Darren. It was his way to kind of protect his son. But on top of that, Evie and all her children, like, so much death in this world, and it's just kind of like, and for you not to win in the end, it's kind of like, that's the thing of, like, I think it's showcasing, like, there's no, it's more so like no winning or losing in this world. It's either you live, you die. That's all there kind of is. I think that's kind of the message this episode kind of gets across. At least that's what I kind of took for it. Is like, so like I said, if this was a movie, it'd be a depressing ass movie. But there are movies that kind of have similar endings to this where it doesn't work out. You're like, oh, that's a little heartbreaking. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, the bad guys kind of won. And you're like, wow. I mean, to be fair, this is bad guys on bad guys. Hence why I'm saying, like, there's no winning or losing. It's just kind of like, you either live or you die, you know, in that regard. So, a lot of interesting things, dude. I'm really curious to see where ultimately all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.